My name is Robbie Steiner, and I'm the Director of Theater Arts at Floyd Central High School.
Hi, I'm Patrick Jump. I'm the Technical Director of Floyd Central Theater Arts production of Newsies.
Our journey with Newsies started back in 2016 when we took 42nd Street to the International Thespian Festival. And while we were out there, we were approached by some people from Disney Theatrical Group asking us if we would be interested in piloting a show for them sometime in the future. And of course, that was very exciting for us to hear that they were interested in our program and wanted to learn more about what we do. Fast forward to spring 2017, and we got an email from Disney asking us if we would be one of a small group of schools that would pilot Newsies before they release it for other schools to perform. At the same time, we were approached by Music Theater International asking us not only to pilot the show, but also to have it screened for the International Thespian Festival in Lincoln, Nebraska. So it was a very exciting time to be asked, of course, and to be able to work on a show like this is quite an honor. We discussed amongst ourselves, me and Megan Bliss, and Patrick Jump and Angela Hampton, talking about whether or not this was the right choice for our program to say yes to this kind of show. And it took a lot of creative thinking because we had to imagine how are we going to take this show that is very iconic in the way that it was done on Broadway and make it work and be effective in the high school setting. And we decided we were up for the challenge, and I'm very, very glad that we said yes, because it's been just an incredible journey to collaborate with Disney and work with them. After we decided to accept the offer from Disney and MTI to pilot Newsies, we decided that we would gather all of the kids from the department together, along with our staff and some parents, and announce the show. In November, we will be one of the first schools to pilot Newsies. And it was so exciting to finally say we're doing Newsies and to see the reaction and to get the excitement and to know that that was sparking a journey that none of us could even really imagine where it would go at that point.
Finds ways to sting you, and then one day decides to bring you something to believe in for even a night. One night, maybe forever, but that's all right. That's all right.
Once we said yes to doing Newsies, we began a process of getting the kids trained for the rigorous choreography that they would encounter during the show. Over the summer, they took yoga classes every day, I think 5 days a week. And then we also added in strength training about 3 days a week. So the students were really working very hard over the summer to just prepare, just to audition for the show and to get themselves in the physical condition that they needed to be in order to be dancing newsboys and newsgirls in our case. So at the end of the summer, we had our auditions, and we auditioned our entire season all at once. So it was a very exciting time, high stakes for all of the kids, and there was a lot of positive energy. And we cast the show, and we decided, since we had a large number of students interested that we wanted to be able to include, we decided to cast a rather large group for the ensemble. And this is different than the Broadway show, which was about 35 people in the entire cast. We ended up with 74. And the reason we decided to do that was because on the Broadway version, they had to double and play lots of different characters, and especially at the end when there's supposed to be this really big group of workers from across the city that have come together to protest and rally together against the demands of Pulitzer. On Broadway, it's the same Newsies, just wearing some different outfits and carrying some signs and representing the different boroughs. We decided we would have an entirely different group of Newsies that would come in and be there for that final scene, and to represent the Brooklyn Newsies and the other boroughs that come in and join the Manhattan Newsies, who are the main dancing Newsies throughout the whole thing. So that was really exciting to be able to include so many students and to do something that Broadway wasn't able to do with the show, which was kind of create that feel of that mass number of people there at the end.
The technical process is that Mr. Steiner is the designer of the show, so he designs the set, what it looks like. And then my role is to take that vision, that sketch, and to create that into what you see on stage today. It starts with the drafting process, so I'll take his sketches that has basic dimensions and overall idea or concept of what the set is to look like, and then I'll take that and I'll put that into a computer software that will help make very accurate measurements, let the builders know what needs to be built, what order it needs to be built. It allows me to prepare a material list of what needs to be purchased and what needs to be planned out for the build. And then we take those build drawings and then we bring those out to the build floor, and then the students, as well as myself and some adult assistants, help us and we build it.
We started rehearsals for Newsies in September of 2017, and we really hit the ground running. We started with the choreography and then eventually started incorporating the scene transitions in the show, which is really complicated. We have all of these big structures that had to be moved around by hand, and the movement of the scenery is very much like choreography in and of itself.
This set was a steel structure because of all of the movement that was happening on stage. The actors are climbing and jumping and swinging, so we wanted to make sure it was really safe and really solid, so we decided to make it out of steel.
Throughout the entire rehearsal process and the casting process, we were in conversation with Disney about the challenges of doing the show in the high school setting, particularly when it comes to the gender of the Newsies. And when it was done on Broadway, of course, it's a bunch of male Newsies. In most high schools, you don't have 35 extremely good, technically dancing boys that can handle the roles of the Newsies, and of course you want to be inclusive of the girls in the school as well. So we worked with them to figure out what characters would be best to play with gender a little bit. And what we found was we didn't have to do too much with our main Newsies. They actually gave us more options than we needed to use for that. But we were able to play with artistically how we would approach it with the ensemble of Newsies. And we decided to really not pay attention to their gender at the end of the day. We had talked about, oh, do we put the girls in skirts because they would have been in skirts at that time? Do we try to make them look like boys? And we decided not really to worry about that. We just dressed them like normal Newsies. Some of them had pigtails, some of them had wigs, some of them look more like boys, and some of them very much look like girls. And we just decided to not really worry about the gender, and we found that that really worked very well.
If I get the headline, I'll make up a headline and I'll say anything I effed up. Cause at 2 for a penny, if I take too many weasels, just makes me eat all mapped up.
Opening night was very exciting for us.
When we opened the show, we had actually completely sold out our entire run.
Sold out crowd.
To my knowledge, we've not done that with a show in our history at Floyd Central, to have completely sold out the run before we even opened on the first night. So that was very exciting. We had just so much energy in the audience for our performances, and the kids really fed off of that.
The energy was very, very high.
We also had the show screened for the International Thespian Festival, so 2 adjudicators came out to our second Saturday performance, and they evaluated the show. And eventually, after the first of the year, we found out that the show was selected for the International Thespian Festival.
All right, well, we got very exciting news, guys. We're going to the break. You kind of step back from this moment and think about, like, yes, we're excited about really how cool this is. This question of, like, can we handle this or not? You know, like this really terrifying thing. And we took the risk and we said yes, and it could have gone a million directions, and it went in a very positive one.
Guess what?
The International Thespian Festival is an annual gathering of 4,000 high school theater students, educators, and professionals from all over the world.
Some challenges working with students, obviously, is this is a learning environment. One of the challenges that we face at Floyd Central every year is a high quality value of set with some inexperienced workers. So it's our job to make sure that they're involved in the process, that they're doing it safely, that they're learning along the way, and they're very excited while doing so.
I think the most challenging part of this process was figuring out how to make the world that the Newsies lived in. I went through quite a few versions of our design before we settled on the scenery that we ended up using for the show. And even with that, it's very difficult to manipulate this scenery and to move it around and to make all of the different locations.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the star of our show tonight, Miss Meadow Larkin.
Myself, folks. I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wise.
Because the show moves very swiftly from one location to the next, and it's all choreographed. There's actual dancing that's going on during the transitions, and the moving parts have to look pretty and aesthetically pleasing as they're moving around from one location to the other. There's really not an opportunity to just take a blackout in the show and reset things. We have to do all of the movement of scenery within full view of the audience. So we have to incorporate that artistically into the storytelling of the show.
Typically our students are very involved in the build. They're trained through our technical theater classes to operate the saws and work in the scene shop on tools and things like that. With this show, with it being mostly steel, a lot of the students helped mainly with the prep of that. They helped with cutting jig blocks and laying out the different structures and then assembling at the very end. Our students are very heavily involved in the paint process of the show. So we have a student scenic artist that helps paint everything, and this set being steel, we wanted to make sure that was clean and safe, so there's lots of paint detail that went onto it, textured paint to give traction for the actors climbing on the set. The floor was painted by students as well, and then we have a lot of ropes that get hung for the balcony scene, and then there's a couple other scenic pieces that get flown in that the students helped with the framing and assembly of those as well.
So that was really difficult on the front end from a design perspective, but it was also very difficult on the practical end when it came to actually incorporating the transitions into our rehearsal process. When we got to our run-throughs, we started using the actual set pieces, and then we got into our technical rehearsals, and of course focused in even more on how those pieces were going to be moving.
Seeing those transitions on stage for the first time, the choreography of the scenery that Mr. Steiner and the management team created along with our choreographer was very magical, and it created a character within the set itself, which I think was really unique for this show. The crew members that were in costume moving the set, we encouraged them to create a character within their scene changes. So there was a purpose for that tower to rotate in the way that it was supposed to rotate, whether it was fast or whether it was slow or abrupt or when it moved. The scenery really came to life with this show, and I think that was something that was really exciting.
It's really exciting to see that growth process and to see how much they put into the production on the front end, and then the joy that they have and the pride that they can have by the end when they can say, hey, I helped build this, I helped paint that, I was the one calling those cues and making all of this happen. And that's something that really excites me about our program, because I feel like we do a really good job of preparing our technical theater students for the next level, for college or for the professional world.
When the towers finally came together, and for the first time we were able to roll them out on stage and assemble them together, we're not fortunate enough to be able to build on stage when dealing with metal, so we had to do a lot of things outside. So it was a very big process of take it outside, do some welding, bring it back inside. So when it was finally all done, and we built it in pieces, so once it was all done, it was finally assembled and it all connected. That was a really, really fun moment.
In addition to just learning how to put on an extensive production like Newsies, I think our students really gained a lot from the content of the show and from the message that the show teaches. It's about a group of young people that are banding together.
That was some speech you made.
And using the tools that have been mastered by an older generation to overcome injustice and to find their voice.
So the world says no! Will the kids do too? Try to walk all over us, we'll stomp all over you!
We have people who believe in our students, we have a community that supports our program, and we have adults that understand what teenagers are capable of and set the bar high and help the students reach that. And that is something that not every school has, not every community has. And while that's something to be proud of, I think it's a major responsibility that we have to share that and to inspire other communities, other students, other teachers to believe in their students and to believe in the power of theater education. And that's what I think is so important about our invitation to the International Thespian Festival.